Yes, take 4. Between my last video and this video, I have filmed 3 times. The first and second time were so horrible, I hated them, discarded them, deleted them. It was just awful. I hired somebody to help me with camera angles and lighting angles, and so I hope that that's improved over last time. I filmed another episode and plugged my microphone in incorrectly. So my microphone did a great job of recording all the sounds that my camera makes, which is evidently none at all. No sound. So we're back here for take number 4. 3 lessons and a little bit about what I expect from you and what you can expect from me. So what I expect from you is to be an adult. I don't care how old you are. It's about your behavior on the internet, and I don't even care about the rest of the internet. Well, I do, but for right now, we're just talking about here on this channel. Have an open mind, be critical, and don't necessarily ascribe every little thing in your life that happens to something magical. Yes, magic is real. Yes, magic exists. I can't prove that to you right now. That's something that if you don't already know it, you will learn as you travel down this path. However, don't fall into the trap of ascribing every single thing in your life to something magical. It just doesn't work that way. 1, keep an open mind. You're obviously here to learn something. So keep an open mind about what I'm teaching. Don't just write it off and say, well, that's stupid. Try it and see. However, if something feels wrong to you, don't try it. Don't even do it. If it feels wrong, don't do it. So that's where part 2, being critical, comes in. Don't just take everything that I give you as gospel from the internet witch on high or whatever kind of magical thing. Instead, be critical about what you're learning and what you want to learn. And I don't mean critical in the sense of criticizing, but instead look at each individual thing and think, does this serve me or does it not serve me? Maven, do you really need to play with the lights right now? Come on, buddy. There you go. So think critically and decide whether these things work for you or not. Now, what you can expect from me is that I will be complete, open, and honest. I will teach you to the best of my ability. When I make a mistake, I'll do my best to discover that I've made the mistake, own up to it, and try to make amends. Whatever that'll look like, I don't know. When we come across those mistakes, I'll do my best. In part, that means that every time I give you an assignment, I will give you the reason for that assignment. Because at some point down the road, you will probably end up teaching somebody. And if you do, and you give them one of the assignments that you've learned here, and they ask why, I don't want you to say, well, I don't know, that's what Susie said to do. I want you to know the reason why for each of the assignments and what the purpose of that assignment is. However, I will not always give you the reason for the assignment before the assignment. There's an assignment coming up today, and I'm going to give you the reason for that assignment after the assignment, because telling you beforehand will ruin the exercise for you. The first assignment that we have for today is creating a book of shadows. I don't care what that looks like for you. I don't care if it's scrap paper that you keep in a box. I don't care if it's a fancy journal that you bought off the internet or from a friend or made yourself. All I care about is that you have some place to start your book of shadows. Your book of shadows is a magical diary. It's a place for assignments. It's a place for spells and results and how they work for you. It's important that it have date information on it so that you can look back and say, oh, this is how old I was when I did it, or oh, this is what was going on in my life when I did this, or whatever. You think maybe right now that the dates are not important, but they are. Trust me, I know. Don't ask me how I know. However, in my experience, a lot of witches are also wounded artists. And if you start out with a fancy journal, you may be so intimidated by making a mistake or so intimidated by the journal itself that you never use it. You may end up with 3, 5, 12, again, don't ask me how I know, journals that have nothing in them. They're beautiful, beautiful journals, perfect for a book of shadows, and you never use them. So I encourage you, especially at the beginning, not to invest a lot of money in this. Do something small and easy, whether it's a stack of paper, printer paper, or if you want lined paper, whatever, a composition notebook, any kind of school supply book that you might get at your local Staples or from Amazon or whatever you may have already lying around the house. As long as it's got a place for you to include the date and any other information that you want to include about it. So that's your first assignment, starting a Book of Shadows. Your second assignment is going to be describing what being a witch means to you. Now, I'm not talking about an essay. I want you to just think of the kind of person that you think of when you think of a witch and what skills and abilities that they have, because that's how you're going to be able to craft what you need to learn to be a witch. Again, not all witches are the same. Ask 12 witches a question and you'll get at least 13 different answers. So you have to decide what kind of witch you are. That's nothing that anybody can tell you. That's something you have to discover for yourself. You might be a water witch, as I am. You could be an earth witch. I've been an earth witch. You could be a hedge witch, a kitchen witch, a techno-pagan. There are tons of different kinds of witches, as you can see with this graphic. Tons of different kinds of witches. Just because it's on a list doesn't mean you have to be that kind of witch. Maybe you're something new that isn't on a list somewhere. Maybe you're your own kind of witch. What does that kind of witch look like to you? What kind of divination does that witch do? What kind of Book of Shadows does that witch have? What role does a witch serve in their community? So when you're talking about that specific type of witch, what do they do? Are they healers? Are they teachers? Are they the voice of the gods? Do they do divination? Do they watch from outside and just protect the community? What is their community? Is it the people that they live with? Is it the town that they live in? Is it a certain segment of the population? And get that information down, because that will help you determine what kind of witch skills and talents, knowledge you need to have in order to be a witch. So that's your second assignment. The third assignment is actually part 1 of 2. This assignment is the first part of what's called the Book of Mirrors exercise. So what you'll do is you'll make a list of every negative trait you have. As long as you can think of them, you just keep writing it down. Number them, go ahead and just write them all down. Don't share this list with anybody. Don't share it with me. Don't share it with your most intimate partner. Don't share it with family, loved ones, strangers, enemies, anybody. Because someday somebody may actually use that list against you in some way. So you don't share it with anybody. It's yours and it's private. After you write down a list of all your negative... Mabin, what are you doing? After you write down a list of all your negative traits, then you need to put an element next to each one. If you don't know what the element is, you can guess, you can put a question mark next to it. You can put 2 elements if you think maybe it's related to 2 elements. For example, if you put gossip on your list, that would be the element of air, because that's the element of communication. If you put lazy, that would be the element of earth, because earth is very slow moving. If you put emotional, depressed, that could be the element of water, because water is all about emotions. If you put quick to anger, even though anger is an emotion, you could definitely associate that with fire, because fire is the element of anger and passion and all those kind of fiery things that we feel. So basically you'll go through your list, and all those negative traits, you will list the element next to them. This helps you determine your elemental type or types. You can be 1 type, you can be 4 types. It's kind of best to be 4 types because that's balanced. I'm usually 1 or sometimes 2 types depending on where I am in my emotional growth process. Someday maybe I'll get to 4, but today is not that day. In my next video, I will be giving you part 2 of that Book of Mirrors exercise. It's very important that you do part 1 before you view part 2. Because if you view part 2, that will give you information, and may affect how you do part 1. So please do part 1 first, then watch the video for part 2, and you can do the exercise for part 2. Then we'll talk more about Book of Shadows, and we'll have some new exercises for next week, including casting a circle. Everybody thinks that that's really hard. It's not. Casting a circle is also tied into creating an altar. So casting a circle and creating an altar kind of go hand in hand, because obviously you'll have an altar in your circle. So both of those will be the subject for the next video, as well as exercise number 2. Alrighty, blessed be.